Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. It is 19 after 9 o'clock, and we are joined by two guests this morning to discuss something really very, very important. And that, of course, is the Bella Bill, the effects on homeschoolers. My two guests are Neeresh Badal. I'm not sure if it's pronounced Badal or Badal. He is a member of the Gauteng Association for Homeschooling. He's also a homeschooling parent. And our next guest is Shirley Erwee. Both of you, I do apologize if I've not pronounced your names correctly. You'll correct me on air in a minute or two. Let's start with you, Shirley, first. Is it Shirley Erwee?
Erwee, it's an Afrikaans surname, but I don't
Ah, okay.
mind.
Shirley Erwee, lovely to have you on the show. And please just give us a quick, brief bio on who you are and your interest on this very hot topic.
I'm firstly a homeschooling mother of 6 children. I've been homeschooling since 1997, and I'm also the author of 2 parent books on home education. I'm involved in providing curricula for home educators, and I'm one of the founding members of the Liberty in Learning Coalition, which stands for freedom in education in South Africa and elsewhere too. I guess we would support any move for freedom in education. So the Bella Bill
And
is
I
something.
suppose that talks directly to the Bella Bill, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. As home educators, we have some major concerns with the draft bill as it stands at present.
Let's bring you in, Neeresh. A very good morning. Lovely to have you on the show.
Morning, Julie. Thank you for being here.
All right. It's Neeresh Badal.
Badal, either which way, Badal. There are variations in the pronunciation, so I'm not fussed up about it.
Okay, no worries. Um, you are a member of the Gauteng Association for Homeschooling. You're also a homeschooling parent. Let's start off right at the beginning. When, how did this Bella Bill come about? What are your major concerns regarding this bill?
The Bella Bill started, I think, in 2012, and the draft was released in 2015. Bella Bill basically is the Basic Education Law Amendments Bill, where there are changes being made to the South African Schools Act. As a homeschooling parent, as a member of an NPO, and as part of the Gauteng Association for Homeschooling, we are concerned with some of the amendments being made, forcing parents to register for homeschooling. Those who do not register could be criminalized and could be imprisoned for up to 12 months. Then there's also forced visitation by the Department of Education, as well as the implementation of CAPS curriculum to parents, which indirectly will create opportunities for the Department of Education to force comprehensive sex education once CAPS curriculum becomes implemented or compulsory.
So up to now, what I'm hearing is that the homeschooling environment was totally autonomous from the government education department, and it seems now they wanting to interfere. They wanting to control this space as well. Shirley, let's come to you. How successfully has the homeschooling environment been run up to now? And were you in a position to truly prepare our children for the big world, for tertiary, and any area that they were prepared to go into? And if you answer in the affirmative, that does then indicate that there's absolutely no necessity for the Bella Bill to be put in place as far as homeschooling environment is concerned.
Yes, absolutely. I think parents who choose home education are immensely invested in their children's success. And so they will do everything that they can to ensure that those young adults are going to be successful in their further studies, in the workplace, in the world as adults. And, there hasn't been proper research done in South Africa, but from over 20 years of experience, we know that our young graduates from home education are succeeding. The issue is that the government feels that there needs to be a measure of oversight over home education, that states and governments around the world are obligated to ensure that the rights of all children to receive basic education are realized. And this is where the conflict comes in, because parents are the best positioned and legally empowered to watch over the best interests of the children. And we feel that there needs to be, we need to start over and negotiate how this needs to happen. Personally, and many organizations agree with my view as well, that many homeschoolers feel notification would be a better way for the government to know how many children are being home educated, rather than an application for permission to start home education. Other parents don't need permission to choose whatever choice they make for their children. Why should we need permission to act in what we believe is the best interest of our children? So that's just one of the issues that we have.
I guess surely the government or the Department of Education would argue that the other people, as you refer to, are really part of the basic education system in regular or private schools. So homeschooling is really outside of that ambit. But I don't have the energy for homeschooling, I might add. But I think it, to me, sounds like the absolute best choice for your child's health and well-being, because what you put in is what you're going to get out. And I mean, what better way of preparing your child for the big world by your own input, um, and following a syllabus that you know has been tried and tested all around the world. um, Neeresh, would you like to come in here and respond to that comment from my side?
Yeah, sure, Julie. Parents choose to homeschool for a variety of reasons. Some parents choose to homeschool because they're unhappy with the public education sector. Some choose to homeschool because it's an um, affordable equivalent to private schooling. Others choose to homeschool because they have learners with special educational needs.
Yeah.
Some parents also prefer to homeschool because they don't want to follow the CAPS curriculum. They sort of look at alternate international curriculums. So when you take away the freedom of parents to choose how they homeschool, you start infringing on their rights. Parents, sort of know what is best for their kids, and every parent wants to provide the best possible opportunities for their children, especially in education. And when we start tampering with that, and when kids who are not able to perform in traditional schools are actually excelling in homeschooling, why do we want to disrupt their learning as such?
Okay. I know the one thing you mentioned was introducing sex education to supposedly younger learners, and a lot of parents take objection to that. I too would take objection to that, because there's a time, a place, and a how to impart this type of information. Shirley, how does it look like as far as the Department of Education is concerned regarding sex education for children? There's also the other issue of the supposed shared bathroom or toilet facilities that they were thinking of embarking on at some stage in the future. And I'm sure you take strong objection to that as well. So, your thoughts, Shirley?
Yes, I mean, home education has people from across the board, but everybody has their own moral standards and their own religious views, or even some that have no faith or whatever. But everybody has their own ideology, and the state also has an ideology. And as far as I can understand, the religion of the state school system is humanism. So for anybody who has a different worldview or a different religious preference, there's going to be a conflict of interest there. And some parents are happy. They send their children to state schools and then they counter that by teaching their own beliefs at home. But some parents want the children's education to be from the get-go, in the way that they believe is best for their children. And that's a choice that is protected by the Constitution. And many people feel that this requirement to have children assessed every 3 years by a registered teacher, basically, is going to mean that parents are going to be forced to teach to the test. They're going to be forced to comply with the CAPS curriculum, and anything that they find objectionable is going to be forced upon them. And so they take issue with that. And it's our right to object, I believe.
So you are referring there to clause 37B(4). Am I correct? That's exactly what you're raising.
Yes, yes. There's that
Uh-huh.
requirement for assessment every 3 years. So I can
And,
see it
and,
from,
and your understanding of that assessment, how is that going to then play out in your homeschooling environment? You are saying it's going to force you to follow then the government's or the Department of Education's curriculum.
well, I believe that because the assessors have to be SACE registered, they have to be, government approved teaching professionals. They are only familiar with the government's way of doing things, with the public school system. Most of them have very little understanding of the wide variety of philosophies and styles and approaches that are used in the home education sector. So, my guess is that the kind of tests that are used in schools are going to be applied on home educators, which means that for some home educators who are not following CAPS based curricula, it's going to either put them at a disadvantage or they're going to have to teach to the test. And
Okay, not an ideal situation at all. Neeresh, talk to us about clause 2C. How will that impact on homeschooling? Because you're taking objection to that as well, are you not?
Yes, I am, but you just need to remind me what clause 2C is, please, Julie. There's so many
Okay.
clauses in there.
Okay, it's criminalizes any person who unlawfully and intentionally interrupts, disturbs, or hinders school activity. It doesn't really apply in your case, does it, as homeschoolers? But
No, not
why the
specifically,
objection? Yeah.
not specifically to homeschoolers, but it does apply to parents who disrupt schools. You know, normally when there's issues at schools and parents go and they protest, those disruptions then end up interfering with school activity. So that is one of the things in the clause, not directly affecting homeschooling in any way. I think it's more of a schooling disruption.
Okay. There's so many other issues, and unfortunately, we don't have too much time. Perhaps another 5 minutes more, I hope. I want to touch on the issue around the language and admission policies in the schooling system, the state schooling system. That has absolutely no bearing or impact on homeschooling. But if the Bella Bill is passed, how will that then affect you guys? Surely.
I don't think that it will affect home education, except to the extent that, perhaps testing might only be conducted in certain areas by certain teachers. And I don't know if that would be in a certain language or not. But generally, home educators are free at present to, teach in whichever language we speak at home with our children. And I trust that that would stay the same as it is. But that law affecting schools might cause more parents to consider home education because they don't want to enroll their child in a school where the child's home language or their preferred language is not going to be supported.
Niresh, your thoughts on that matter? And then let's also look at the issue around obviously, you're not governed by SGBs. The Department of Education is suggesting that they have oversight or input as far as SGBs are concerned because they believe that they could assist in terms of finance management issues. But that doesn't apply to homeschooling. But when the if the Bella Bill is passed, do you think it might have an impact, Niresh? And what would it look like?
So the first thing, Julie, is that with the SGBs, you're taking away powers from an SGB. Um, Schools generally are an extension of the community within which they serve. Most people serve on an SGB on a voluntary basis because of passion, because they want to see the school succeed, because they want to make a difference. When you start applying these rules where SGB members have to declare financial statements, um, you start deterring people, and it's generally the people who have talent or skill or who are able to have a school that you start chasing away from the school. And the school itself starts to suffer like that. When the school doesn't have any right to say in its admission or language policies, as Shirley said, people start becoming more and more frustrated with the public education system, and then they will start coming to homeschooling. So homeschooling numbers will start increasing again. It's sort of a counterbalance on the scale.
Shirley, I also know that there have been recommendations for schools to sell liquor on the premises as a fundraising, when they are doing fundraising. The argument there is that it is after hours, children may not be necessarily exposed to that area. I don't agree with them, but be that as it may, I just think it sends out a very bad signal, as do a lot of other parents as well. But as far as the person that came up with this great idea, firmly believes that it would be a great money generator for them and much needed funds for the school, or for the schools in question. Again, I reiterate that you guys are out of that discussion because you are homeschooling. But as a concerned parent, as a concerned community member, how do you view that, Shirley?
I think schools should be a place where adults set an example to children. And if they want to have those kind of fundraisers, I think it would be better to not do that on school premises, just because you don't want children to associate, drinking and partying with school. I just think the two don't mix. And, parents need to be a good example to their children. So there's always that unfortunate element that might spoil it for the majority who may be well behaved, and, it might well be a good source of funds. But I think we always have to consider, the lowest denominator in the community, and that's just how it is.
Neeresh, your thoughts on the matter?
No, I tend to agree with both of you. Alcohol has no place in school. When we start selling alcohol on school premises, then we start creating the perception that it's acceptable in society, it's acceptable in school. We need to look at the storage of the alcohol. We need to look at post the school event, what happens to the alcohol. You find some people don't finish their alcohol. The bottles lay around with bits and pieces of alcohol in it. Kids then start experiment. Kids find it. We already have in public schools high rates of violence from learners on teachers. Now, at public school events where learners want alcohol and teachers are trying to deny them that, it's just going to aggravate the situation as well. If alcohol, as we know, it will always find its way in the hands of learners, what are we going to end up with? More violent cases of violence, more sexual abuse, more teenage pregnancies. What about, teachers who end up consuming alcohol while on duty, and their behavior and the reflection that it then has on that school and the community?
Absolutely. Okay, so that's an outline of concerns regarding the Bella Bill for you as a home school teachers. As a whole, what are the concerns should we be aware of should this bill go ahead? And also, do tell me that there's a lot of pressure for this bill not to be passed. That's what I'm waiting to hear. So let's go with you first, Shirley.
I think home educators have been amongst the most vocal groups protesting against the Bella Bill. From the get-go, they've written letters. At the recent round of public hearings, they attended in great numbers, and they spoke so articulately that they've really done themselves proud. But I think the biggest concern is that it takes authority that should only be parents and puts it in the hands of the head of the department. And obviously, it's lower officials who will be acting on that person's behalf, making decisions about children they know nothing about. And so I think that's the primary concern. And, all the rest of the requirements and regulations and things, it all falls under that. Who should have the say over home educated children? And, I think it's parents, unless there is good reason to limit the freedom that parents have currently enjoyed with regards to being in control of their children's education. If the state wants to limit that, they must have researched reasons to show why it's reasonable and justifiable to limit those constitutional rights.
And undoubtedly, as you speak, and as Neeresh has also outlined, there's quite a big demand, and there's a lot of children who are being homeschooled. And given that scenario, there must be a body that oversees the homeschooling environment. Who would that be, and what sort of oversight do they do regarding homeschooling? Neeresh, Shirley, whoever would like to respond.
So currently there is no regulatory body or ombudsman as such, but there are various homeschooling associations, and most provinces generally have a provincial association for homeschoolers. So parents can join those associations. There is the Pestalozzi Trust, who provides a legal defense for homeschoolers. And then, when parents have problems with curriculum service providers, there's always the Consumer Council that parents can contact for support, because at the end of the day, curriculum service providers are providing a service that parents are paying for. And if they're unhappy with the service that they're getting or the product they've purchased, they can take it to the Consumer Council. But in terms of homeschooling itself, many are just voluntary organizations that serve the homeschooling community as such.
Okay, so what I'm trying to get at is there are associations, credible people who kind of create a support structure for the homeschoolers throughout the country. You also mentioned if there are issues with products that are utilized by the homeschooling environment, there is the Consumer Council that you could go to. Do you know that if you've had lots of problems in the homeschooling area, or because it is so hands on and individually run by each parent or parents, it's very, very well maintained and well controlled, Shirley?
Yes, in general, parents are very hands-on. And so if there's a problem, within 20 minutes, a parent can change the product that they're using. It's not like a school system where it takes 20 years before they revamp the entire curriculum. And, we are just members of society using products as a service. So the word gets around very fast if there's bad service. It's like if you go to a bad restaurant, you're gonna warn your friends and your neighbors, don't go there. The service is not good. And likewise, in home education, the market monitors and controls itself. And, the more openness there is and the more innovation there is, actually, the better, I believe. Whereas when there's too much control, then it stifles the creativity and the talent that is out there, creating solutions in education for South Africa's benefit, the school system and everybody included.
Okay, final words from you, Neeresh.
Um, for me, the big concern, and I think for parents as well, is CAPS curriculum is very, very content heavy, very assessment heavy. And as Shirley said, we end up teaching for the test. We don't really teach learners content. I know for implementing CSE is going to start infringing on family values and parental rights. When it comes to Hivs learners as well, when it comes to Hindu scholars, when it comes to Christian learners, it's against religious beliefs. Parents need to have the freedom and the flexibility to teach as and what they want, and have these sensitive conversations with their kids when time is appropriate for them. The Bella Bill truly is an infringement on the rights of parents and homeschoolers.
Do we know when they're going to try and push it through, or perhaps halt it altogether and just put it aside as a bad idea? Shirley.
There are still more steps in the process, and my understanding is that there will again be a time for further public comment at a future step, but it could be still a long while before we reach there. So we're not at the end of the road yet. And, as home education representatives, we just encourage parents to get as informed as they can and to speak up and to be bold and to stand up for freedom in education for all South Africans. It's not just, home educators. There are other sectors that are also impacted by the Bella Bill. And we want parents to be able to choose what's best for their kids.
Well said, Shirley Erwee and you, Neeresh Badal, for your time and concerns regarding the Bella Bill. I've learned a thing or two. So thank you indeed. Lovely talking with both of you, and perhaps we will catch up again sometime in the future when there's more discussion around this controversial bill. Go well. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, Julie. Thank you so much, Shirley.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye. It is 9:44. News and views on Salam Media. Next, we're going to be talking about the Sudan crisis. Will the 72-hour ceasefire be broken? So do stay with us.